My name is Ken Veitch, and I'm referred to locally as the local historian. I don't lay any claims to that lofty title, but I do like learning and talking about the history of Muskoka and Bracebridge. This particular session I've called Bracebridge's Beginnings, and it deals with the environment we presently know and how the early explorers and people in Muskoka found it to be not quite as peaceful and tranquil as we know it today. Our beloved Muskoka, peaceful and tranquil and enjoyed by thousands of people every year, was not quite as tranquil and peaceful for the first explorers and people that came into Muskoka. Robert Boyer's wonderful and well-written book, Early Explorations in Muskoka, and Gary Long's book, This River, the Muskoka, gave us a great insight into what Muskoka was like during those years. Ventures into Muskoka seem to be made in the early 1600s. We know that because of this map that is purported to be in 1657, drawn by Father Joseph Bressani. It's a map of Ontario, crude, but nevertheless reasonably good for the age and for that era. And there's a muddle of lakes showing in the middle of Ontario that could well be the lakes of Muskoka. That means people were coming here in the early 1600s, or else we wouldn't have that map. It's written, though, that the first people to come into Muskoka were the missionaries. And they were determined to Christianize the Indian people into their way of thinking, into their religion. And now in this year, and in the recent past, we know how that turned out. The Hurons of Georgian Bay were almost wiped out by disease, and the Iroquois attacked them, and they murdered many Huron Indians. And of course, we know now the millions of dollars that have been put out to pay, to compensate for those who spent years in residential schools. But the greatest impetus to explore Muskoka came from Upper Canada and Britain. They were paranoid about being attacked by an increasingly restless United States. So they thought perhaps the best way to defend the country would to be improve their defenses by water access from Georgian Bay to Ottawa, to make sure the transfer of troops could be made safely and equipment. As a result of that, there were many explorers, mostly from the Royal Engineers in Britain, came through Muskoka. They first of all started in the Black River in the Van Cunit area, and they found it didn't go anywhere. So then, of course, it was just a matter of time before they found Lake Muskoka. That led them to the Muskoka River. That led them to the falls, then called North Falls, which in the future would be part of the town of Bracebridge. The Muskoka River, where it joins Muskoka Lake, is the main course of the Muskoka River, but it comes in two branches and they meet in Bracebridge, the north branch and the south branch. They were both explored extensively by the people that were sent here to try and find this water access. Little did they know when they started the difficult task this is going to be to find that water access. This picture is an example of the waterfalls, but there would be hundreds of those such waterfalls. Muskegs, swamps, mosquitoes, black flies that would harass these people and take years to provide this access. And they did it with all maps, no plans whatsoever. The British people that were ordering this from afar really had no idea what this land was like. And they didn't know the trials and tribulations they were putting these people through. There was Officer Caddy, Briscoe, Dunford, the sheriff, father, and later his son, all explored through the area, all the way through Algonquin Park to the Ottawa River. There were some funny recommendations come from all those people. They all kind of had differing opinions on what this land was like. One person suggested a series of lift locks all the way from Georgian Bay to the Ottawa River. They had no idea, but there had to be hundreds of them if they were going to do that. Another recommended a village be created in the middle of Algonquin Park to help people that were coming up and down that water access. Now, of course, they didn't find a water access that made any sense because there wasn't one. So after several attempts and a lot of money, the government finally changed plans. It was their only opportunity to defend the land, and they felt, and that was to put people in it, homestead it. That gave rise to the Free Grant Land and Homestead Act of 1868. So that was the end of the attempt to access the bush from Ottawa to Muskoka. And the Free Grant Land and Homestead Act was a good idea to populate the land. And when they passed it, they had no idea how difficult that would be. Nor did they have any idea how difficult it would be for the people that accepted the offer that act provided for free land in Muskoka. 100 acres. Most people that came here had no idea that they would ever be able to own 100 acres of land. But they got 100 acres of land through the Free Grant Land and Homestead Act. And the hardship and suffering many of those people endured was unspeakable.